just because you land on the shelf does not mean that people are going to buy it. So if you are not actively driving sales in that first 30 days, that buyer starts to worry that they've made a mistake.
Hey friends, it's Lee Safar here with some exciting news. The introduction to regenerative coffee farming workshops are now available on demand in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. These workshops are designed to give you actionable insights into the future of coffee farming through regenerative agriculture. Whether you're a coffee producer, roaster, cafe owner, or just passionate about coffee sustainability. For coffee producers, the workshop is available for just $10, and for everyone else, it's $20, a small price to pay for knowledge that could transform your understanding of what it's going to take to grow coffee from now on. Led by our incredible professors Angela Barrero, Murilo Bettarello, Felipe Croce, Carlos Ordóñez, and João Araújo, the workshop is packed with practical knowledge and strategies to help coffee farmers and the entire coffee industry adapt to the challenges of climate change, rising costs, and market demands. If you're a business owner, this workshop is a great and affordable way to inform your employees about the challenges ahead while also supporting Mappa Forward. This is also a great workshop to share with or gift to your coffee producers. Head to mappaforward.coffee/workshops or click the link in the description to purchase the on-demand version and start your journey towards a more sustainable coffee future today. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Mappa Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and this is unfortunately the final episode of a really great series exploring grocery in coffee with Alli from Retail Ready. And I, again, am going to say we don't get anything from what I'm about to say to you, but if you are interested in getting into grocery, I have been following Alli on social media for years and years. And there are just so many great little nuggets of wisdom that get you thinking about things. And there's a podcast and there is a lot of resources that you can listen to, but also there's a lot of coaching that you can go and get from Alli. So I would recommend that you check it out. Check the show notes for details of that. And don't go into this. There's no reason for you going into it ignorant. That's the point of having Alli on the podcast. Now, in this episode, we're going to talk about, now that you're on the shelf, what comes next. And this is, a lot of people open a cafe or they open a roastery. And again, we say that whole thing of people think, build it and they will come. No, that's not how business works, folks. So you've got to have, there's phases to a rollout plan. Step one, get the buyer to say yes. And a part of the process of getting them to say yes is helping them understand how you're going to be able to move product off the shelf. So once they are on the shelf, what needs to happen then, Alli?
Yeah. Okay. So that buyer says yes. Yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah.
It means your sales pitch really worked. And
life just got harder.
Work begins. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Life got harder. Here's where the real work begins. If your coffee doesn't hit velocity targets, so sales targets of the category, it gets discontinued. Right? That buyer cannot keep slow moving products on the shelf. Mm-hmm. And I always say this with the disclaimer, Lee, that you don't have to be the top mover in your category. You just have to not be the bottom mover category. And so there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of relief when we realize that you just have to not be the worst. Okay. And so all of this can feel really hard, but if you hold that perspective of, I just don't want to be the worst, it opens up a lot of room for creative marketing, for experimentation, for play, for, I don't know, fun. Dare I say fun? Rather than just being like, oh my goodness, like I have to become the top seller in my category. Okay. And one other thing I'll say around this about being discontinued. Lee, I can't tell you how many times I would be looking at categories, category sales, looking at the coffee category, and a couple SKUs, a couple brands from different, or SKUs from different brands are down here at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm debating which ones to discontinue. And I'm like, well, that roaster is a pain in my butt.
Yeah.
And that roaster is really
Easy to deal
sweet
with. Yeah.
and accommodating and easy to deal with. And they're kind of neck and neck down here at the bottom. You can bet that I'm discontinuing the pain in the butt brand.
100%.
So I say that not to say you need to schmooze your buyers or bribe them or anything like that.
Just
we
don't be
agreed
difficult.
a few episodes ago, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
But be a respectful brand who delivers upon your promises. Okay? That goes a lot. It goes really, really far in retail. So you get on the shelf, and now we have to think about, like, what does it take to stay on the shelf and to grow your brand from there? Inside of Retail Ready, we frame it as two different steps. Firstly, there's the coordinated kickoff. And then there is the reorder strategies. So I think so often brands just jump straight to reorders, like, what am I going to do? Like, quarterly, what's my, like, long-term promotion plan? And I argue that the first 30 days in a new account sets up the next 3 years in that account. And so I call it the coordinated kickoff. And here's where we think about, what am I going to do in a new account in the first 30 days that drives sales and that gives that buyer reassurance that they have made the right decision with my brand, right? And so what drives reassurance? It's sales, right? So we're driving sales through promotion and marketing. We talked about this, right? But are we offering discounts? Are we putting our product on sale? Are we doing demos? Are we doing staff education? We made sure we provided shelf talkers, right? We talked about that a couple episodes ago. Maybe, Lee, we talked about how this isn't a long-term strategy, but are we leveraging our direct-to-consumer audience for the first 30 days, getting them to go into store and drive sales, right? Are we highlighting that new account on our social media or in our newsletters and email marketing, right? Really recognizing, we've talked so much about this, Lee, but just because you land on the shelf does not mean that people are going to buy it. So if you are not actively driving sales in that first 30 days, that buyer starts to worry that they've made a mistake.
Oh, and that's when things get uncomfortable for the buyer and for the supplier.
Right. And I think about it like this, like, Lee, if I brought in a new roaster when I was a buyer and they had a beautiful story, right? And I was like, I really want to support this roaster. They're, doing this, this, and this. They've got a making all the social impact. Like, this is really important. And I put it on my shelf. And then maybe I have my review with my boss.
Right.
And they're like, Alli, coffee
what are
category
we doing
flat.
here? Yeah.
Coffee category is flat year over year. Like, what is happening? And I'm like, yeah, but I just brought in this roaster 45 days ago, and they've got this beautiful social mission, and, like, they're doing this, this, and this. And they're going to be like, Alli,
we've got
that's
targets.
all great, but, like, it's not selling. And so it's a direct reflection on me as the buyer. It's a reflection on my decision-making for my department. It's a reflection on my ability to understand the consumers and the brands and connect where each bag goes. And so if the product isn't selling, it makes me as the buyer look bad. And then all of a sudden, like, if we're really zooming out, like, my role's in jeopardy.
Right.
And so it's a lot of weight that the buyer's carrying.
Yeah.
Where they're like, God, like, this really needs to work out. And so, your listeners might be like, yeah, okay, but I'm only one brand. Like, I can't really, like, make or break the buyer's livelihood. And if every brand takes that perspective, then that buyer doesn't have any support in sales in their category, right?
Well,
So thinking about like really how you can team up with that buyer and hold that perspective that you both have the same goals. You both have the same goal of high sales. They want high sales for your brand and you want high sales for your brand. Right? It's not like the buyer's rooting against you here. Like you both want the same thing.
right.
So how can you use that coordinated kickoff period, that first 30 days, to show that buyer that you're really in it together and that you are there to support your brand? And so, a few episodes ago, Lee, we talked about like that looks like all different things, right? And it's up to you and your brand as to like what marketing levers have a positive return on investment in for your particular brand, for that particular retailer. But I like having it as I think about it almost like a marketing menu. Like it literally could be a Google Doc being like, here are all the possible ways that we can drive sales on a retail shelf. Here's what is effective in the first 30 days. And then we're like, okay, we're literally picking off the menu. We're not reinventing the wheel here.
No.
We already know what works. And then, so we've got our 30 days like locked in. And then we move to our reorder system. And that's where we are thinking about having a quarterly marketing plan. So 4 times a year, it's not that much. What are the quarterly or like seasonal things that we're doing in the next 90 days that is going to drive sales in that particular retailer? And again, here, we're not reinventing the wheel. It might not look all that different than your coordinated kickoff. Probably a little less like concentrated effort, right? You're likely not going to do demos forever and ever for the rest of your life in every retailer. But thinking about just having the awareness of, Lee, what are we doing in the next 90 days where we're touching in with that store and the shoppers and the staff just to like keep the energy moving in this account?
Because I'm really getting the message that letting this just sort itself out is not a strategy. People think that because supermarkets have so much footfall that the product's going to move on its own. And all I really need to do is get my product in there. And I know we talked about that, but what are some of the things that, let's say you're in 15 stores, 15 supermarkets, and the product was doing well in a couple of them. And so the retailer said, let's get them in a few more stores. Yeah. What happened? Like, what's one of the things that you can do to keep things moving? Let's say you can't get to stores because they're too far away. Right.
Yeah. Like as you grow, it will be harder to physically go to all your stores. And so one, I'm so glad that you brought this up, Lee. One, I think it's so important to really go deep in your own backyard before you start selling afar, right? It's so much easier to support stores locally than it is cross country. We kind of poked fun at Erewhon a few segments ago. But like I have so many New York brands who are like, oh, I just want to get into Erewhon in LA. Like it would be a dream account. I'm like, you're in New York. You're not flying to LA to do demos. You're not like...
But I can sell a mango for $50, so why wouldn't I want to?
Exactly. Why wouldn't they buy my $12 chia pudding, right? So one mistake I see brands make is that they just expand geographically too far, too fast. So really, first I'll say, dial it back. Like, hold your horses and like, let's just focus locally first. But then, because you're going to also learn so much in your first couple dozen accounts, you're going to learn what works, what doesn't work, all of the buyer communication, all of that stuff. So then let's say it's working and you're ready to expand beyond your region. In the ideal world, Lee, it's exactly the scenario that you just said, where it's a retailer who wants to put you in more of their own stores rather than, again, just finding more single retailers further afield. So let's say a retailer is like, okay, you're already in 10 of our stores. Let's put you in 10 more further away. One of the things that I really like to do is study what is working well in the current stores that you're in, and how can we replicate that on other shelves. So maybe, I keep going back to this example here, but like maybe we find that the accounts where we do have the shelf talkers are selling 25% more than the accounts where we don't have the shelf talkers. Sure as heck, I'm making shelf talkers for those new stores.
100%.
I don't have to be there in person. It's like, do the selling for me. Wonderful. Or yeah, like we're really seeing a surge in sales when we ship little mini like 3-ounce bags for staff.
Right.
Like in the order, we're just throwing in some samples. Like, here's your next like pot of coffee on us.
And that works.
Yeah. Here's why it works. And I can't say always every time, right? But like things like that work because, and gosh, we could do a whole other segment on demos and sampling and stuff. I'll get on my soapbox about this. Yes, sampling to consumer is important. You want people to taste your coffee. But I argue what's more important about demos and sampling is actually connecting with the staff at the store level. Because we want to turn them into advocates and mini salespeople or full-size salespeople for your brand when you're not there. Because if we think about the sampling window, maybe it's 2 hours long. And you're just like hoping that the right shoppers are in the store at that time. Maybe you're catching a couple hundred people if it's like really cranking on a Saturday morning. But if you have connected with 15 staff members who are there 40 hours a week,
they're your brand
rather
ambassadors
than
now.
your 2 hours a week, all of a sudden you have advocates who are literally there when you are not. And so often, Lee, I hear brands who are kind of over doing sampling and demos, and they're like, like it sucks. It's so much energy. They're so expensive. Like it's a waste of my time. And I really want people to flip their understanding of why we do demos in the first place. It's to show the buyer that you're committed, show up, like literally put your face with a name, face and name for that buyer, and to reconnect with the staff rather than just, sure, you'll sell a couple bags of coffee too. But the real importance there is connecting with staff. So I think about as we're going further and further afield, you can see why it's so important to start locally so that you can do those staff, the touch channels, things like that. But thinking about, okay, what is working in our best selling accounts and how can we replicate that on other shelves? And this is, again, I mean, you're such a data person here, Lee. This is where we really look at the numbers and we measure the efficacy of our marketing efforts so that we know whether or not they're worth repeating. Because it's one thing to be like, okay, yeah, we're doing $1 off every bag in the month of February. But unless we actually can sit down and see how it impacted sales and then impacted the bottom line, right? Maybe more important, right? Like maybe we sold 200 bags when it was on sale, but we didn't realize that we were losing money off every sale. Like we've got to look at those marketing efforts. What was the effort? Like how much effort did we put in? How much time, money, resources did it take? And what was the impact of it? Like, is it worth it for us to do?
Yeah,
right?
I was just going to say.
So we look at that like quarterly marketing effort and we look at that menu. That's why we've got a whole menu of marketing plays that we could do. And then we're like, which ones are going to be most effective and most profitable for us?
And I hope that people take from this that the whole thing about grocery is the juice worth the squeeze?
Yeah.
Because
is it worth it?
Getting your brand awareness up may also be the thing that tanks your business if the juice is not worth the squeeze. And if it's a part of a strategy versus just something you think you should be doing because you don't know what else to do, I'm not quite sure that that's the reason to go into grocery. I've rarely seen grocery where the juice was worth the squeeze. In fact, I'm seeing a lot of big brands, or not big, but medium-sized roasters that are on the bigger side of specialty. I have seen grocery be the reason that they are most likely going to go out of business. And it's heartbreaking, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would much rather a brand stay direct to consumer,
Mm-hmm.
stay in their own cafe,
Yep.
make less top line revenue, but have a more profitable business
Mm-hmm.
than go into grocery, increase your revenue, decrease your profit,
100%.
and put you out of business.
Yeah. If you shoot your shot and miss on this one, it could be it's a very quick way to end a business if you don't have the right strategy.
Yeah.
Alli, thank you so much. This has just been like, I can't believe we've been talking for a couple of hours already. It has just been such an easy conversation to have. I hope that you'll come back again. Would you remind people where they can find you on social media and online, and
Yes,
what the workshops are?
absolutely. So you can find me at foodbizwiz.com. That's BIZWIZ. Or over on Instagram at foodbizwiz. Come and say hi to me over there. And if you are pitching grocery and you are getting no responses from buyers, if you're not getting anything back, I have a free resource for you. It's called 100 Buyer No's and how to switch that no into a yes. So it breaks down like why the buyers are saying no and to do next. So if you want that and you're listening, you can DM me the word rebuttal, and Basil, our bot, will just send it your way over on Instagram at foodbizwiz. And then, of course, I'll show up a couple days later and we can have a real conversation in the DMs.
I love that that's the word you chose, rebuttal. I hope that if anybody's struggling with, I'll put that, how to spell that in the
exactly,
in the show notes.
Rebuttal. Yes, REBUTTAL, rebuttal.
I love it.
And then, of course, if you want to dive into all things retail, we do that inside of our Retail Ready program. It's a 90-day program. We've had over 3,000 brands go through it. And it's where we help you build sales systems and understand, again, going deeper into all these topics. How are we speaking to retailers? How are we selling through once we're on the shelf? So you'll find Retail Ready on our website, foodbizwiz.com. And Lee, thank you so much for having me. We could talk for hours and hours.
Really could.
This was so much fun.
I hope that everybody does, if they're thinking about grocery this year, I really hope that they look at these resources. I've been so impressed with the thoughtfulness that you approach this, the way that you talk to people who are small business owners, and the empathy that you show for the struggle, because small business is just getting so much harder every year. And it really feels like there's an agenda by big business to really push out small business, you know? So I have such respect for people like you who are helping to open up the path in front of small business owners. So thank you for what you're doing. And I while I have not taken your program, I am confident that if people do give it a go, that they will be either learning how to move forward with grace, or it stops them from making an expensive mistake.
Yeah, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for recognizing that, Lee, that, admittedly, we have brands who come into Retail Ready thinking that they want to do retail, and then they're like, oh, no, thank you.
Well, you've done your job then, right?
That's a success. That's a success for me as well. Yeah, thank you so much for recognizing that.
Will you do us the honor by signing off the final episode for this series?
I will. Peace, love, and peanut butter. Thank you so much for joining us.
Have an amazing rest of your day, everyone. Bye. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, friends. Please don't forget to show us some love by subscribing, liking, commenting, and most of all, sharing this podcast with your friends. Check the show notes for links, including our sponsors and our Patreon. And stay tuned for more great conversations on the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward.